Hello, and you are very welcome to this week's episode of Cut Through the Noise with me, Aisling O'Rourke, the Communications Coach. Cut Through the Noise is the podcast that helps business leaders just like you increase sales through communications and marketing that elevates your brand. This is series 5 of the podcast, so if it's your first time listening, well, you are very welcome. Please do go back and check out our back catalogue. In season 5, we focused on podcasting and basically the nuts and bolts of podcasting, how it works, how to make a podcast, but also why podcasting is such a useful tool in your marketing strategy. Again, it's a tool as part of an overall marketing strategy, a very, very valuable one, but it's not marketing strategy all on its own. You do need an overall marketing strategy as well. So as I said, in season 5, we focused in specifically on podcasting. Why, you might ask? Well, it's a rapidly growing medium, particularly here in Ireland. While, we may have been slightly slow to really buy into podcasting, it has just exploded in recent years. So if you're not on the podcast bandwagon just yet as a business, now's the time to get cracking on that. It offers unique advantages like enhanced brand awareness and customer loyalty. And at the end of the day, a loyal customer is your best member of staff because they do the work for you by sharing your brand, by singing your praises to the world around them. And that can't be bought. Understanding your audience is the first step towards creating an amazing podcast and business overall. And that's where we started in season 5 of this podcast, where I shared some of the research into podcasting for businesses and the aspects of podcasting that you might not be all that familiar with. So if you want to find out more about podcasting and why it's such a good marketing tool, please do pop back to episode 1 of season 5 here on Cut Through the Noise. In the second episode of this particular season, I had the pleasure of being joined by Claire Darmody. Now, Claire is the founder of Prestige Media. She is a podcast producer, as well as being one of the senior producers of the Pat Kenny Show on News Talk. So Claire knows her stuff. We spoke about what makes a great business podcast, because sometimes it can be hard to know what to talk about. And I really did enjoy my conversation with Claire, where she shared her insights and expertise. We also discussed why sponsoring a podcast is a great way to market your business without actually having to take on the workload of creating your own podcast. In the third episode, I focused in on the technology that you need to create a podcast. You do need to set up some tech, whether that's at your home studio or by finding and investing in hiring a studio. And that can be daunting. So in episode 3, we broke it down to the basics, and you can, with a very simple setup for your podcast, create a really excellent product. Remember that while podcasting is mainly an audio platform, video is also important nowadays when it comes to marketing it. So, even if you don't like the idea of your face being on camera, using video to market your podcast is, I'm going to say it's a requirement. And I know people will not like hearing that, but it is part and parcel of it nowadays. So making sure that you have excellent audio and video will lead to success in the podcast world. At the end of the day, would you listen to a podcast that you had found in your podcast platform if it sounded like it was recorded down a well? I don't really think so. I know I switch off after the first 3 seconds if I can't hear it clearly or if it's just really badly recorded. So making sure that your setup is perfect is key. It's easy to procrastinate about setting up a podcast because of the technical requirements. But again, as I said, in episode 3, I break it down, and with a couple of really simple tools, you can make a really excellent product. And of course, it is important to get support. And yeah, I know, hands up, I will say that, podcast coaching and editing, they are part of our suite of services here at the Communications Coach, but it really is true. I mean, The best athletes have coaches, writers have editors. So it makes sense that you would have a coach and an editor along with you on the journey to creating your podcast for your business. Staying with technology, and in episode 4 of season 5, I had the pleasure of being joined by Mary Rose Lyons of the AI Institute. Now, full disclosure, Mary Rose and I worked together on her podcast, Chatting GPT, which focuses in on AI tools. And it's a fantastic podcast. So if you haven't yet listened to Mary Rose's podcast, please do find it on your preferred podcast platform. Mary Rose joined us on Cut Through the Noise to talk through AI and the tools that she has tested and invested in, and the tools that she has found the most useful in terms of marketing and her own podcasting journey. I really enjoyed our conversation with Mary Rose. She is an expert in AI, so it's well worth checking out. And then there's another part of podcasting that can be really useful in terms of your business. In episode 5, I spoke with Aoife O'Brien of the award-winning Happier at Work podcast. We spoke about podcast guesting. So there are more ways than one to appear on a podcast. It doesn't always require that you create your own. Earlier, we spoke about the advantages of investing in a podcast by sponsoring a podcast. That's a very, very useful tool, and it's a really good one for brand awareness and brand loyalty. But another way to increase brand awareness on another person's platform in their network and their market area is to guest on a podcast. It's a great way to really get to know your audience, to share your message, and to let your audience know more about you. Aoife O'Brien is an expert in podcast guesting, so she talked us through how it works, what makes you a great podcast guest, and what you should do if you really want to make the most out of the opportunity. And that was episode 5 of season 5 of Cut Through the Noise. I hope you're enjoying listening to Cut Through the Noise with me, Aisling O'Rourke. And if you are, please do join our community. You'll get a free press release template and exclusive PR tips and strategies from my 2 decades of experience in media and communications. So after this episode, please head over to thecommunicationscoach.ie/release to get your free template. Now, when it comes to podcasting, individual results will vary, and that will depend on the quality of your podcast, your target audience, and the industry that you're in. But there is a strong correlation between regular podcast listenership and increased likelihood of purchasing from the brand. So basically, if you have a brand podcast or you're sponsoring a podcast and listeners listen to that podcast regularly, they are more likely to buy from you and your brand. It's an excellent marketing tool. And if you haven't yet considered podcasting as part of your marketing toolbox, now is the time to do it. Thank you for listening to Cut Through the Noise with me, Aisling O'Rourke. Don't forget to hit that follow button on your preferred podcast app. And please do give us a rating or review. It all helps to spread the word about Cut Through the Noise. If you need personalized advice on your communications and marketing strategy, or even your new brand podcast, please don't hesitate to get in contact with us. Send us an email to hello@thecommunicationscoach.ie. And that's a wrap for 2024. I want to give a huge thank you to each of the contributors who took time out of their busy schedules to speak with me and you for Cut Through the Noise in 2024. I can't believe how the podcast has grown since we started it earlier this year. A special thank you must go to my amazing podcast editor, Amanda Fitzgerald. I'm really thrilled to have her as part of our team, and we're very, very lucky to have her. And of course, to you for listening. All the likes, comments, shares, and support throughout 2024 have been appreciated. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Cut Through the Noise is going on a well-deserved holiday, but we will be back in 2025. Whether you celebrate Christmas or not, I hope you have a wonderful time with your friends and families over the next few weeks. Take the chance to rest and reflect on all that you have accomplished in 2024. It's too easy to let the time pass without actually stopping and taking a moment to reflect on all that you have done this year the successes, the challenges, and everything in between. At the end of the day, life is short. It's a privilege. We don't know how long we get. So it's important to actually sit back and see, do you know what? I did a good job this year, or we did a good job this year. And I hope you thought that we did a great job here on Cut Through the Noise. Stay safe. And until next time, remember that while content may be king, clarity is key if you want to make sure that you and your brand stand out from the crowd.